Roger Pielke Jr., The Climate Fix: What Scientists and Politicians Won't Tell You About Global Warming. Embark on a journey to understand the complexities and uncertainties surrounding global warming and climate change with The Climate Fix by Roger Pielke Jr. This book examines the controversial science, political agendas, technological developments, and international policies that have shaped the current state of climate change discussions. Presenting a wide array of perspectives, Pielke emphasizes the need for a strategic approach to managing climate change that balances adaptation measures, economic growth, and potential technological breakthroughs. In the process, he seeks to demystify the oft-misunderstood interdisciplinary nexus of climate change debates, offering readers a robust understanding of the many factors that must be considered in developing effective, sustainable solutions.
Future energy demand and the environment. Human activity is emitting more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than Earth's systems can absorb. Scientists warn that this could lead to a tipping point of irreversible effects. European Union policymakers suggest stabilizing carbon emissions at 450 ppm, but many scientists argue for a lower target of 350 ppm. However, some scientists suggest that the focus should be on reducing emissions to zero. This politicized issue has resulted in gridlock among politicians, and the complexity of the Earth's climate system makes it difficult to make sound policy decisions. It is important to address the challenge of meeting the world's energy demands while reducing carbon emissions and addressing the impact on the environment. The truth about climate change. Despite common myths perpetuated by politicians and society, support for addressing climate change has remained strong for 2 decades without negatively impacting the economy. While some technologies show promise in addressing climate change, they are not a substitute for decisions to implement them and foster innovation. Climate policies don't have to compete with economic policies and can actually complement each other. Success in mitigating climate change requires both environmental and economic policies to work together. Perception of a trade-off between the economy and the environment is untrue and must be addressed. Global decarbonization and energy demands. The world faces an enormous, increasing demand for energy consumption. Instead of solely reducing emissions, focusing on alternative technologies and diversifying energy supplies will improve access to energy while lowering emissions. Planning for the future with a no-regrets attitude will ensure practical solutions that make sense regardless of scientific uncertainties. The use of offsets as a solution is nothing but magical thinking that avoids the challenge of decarbonization. This process will need to be a learning experience to address the energy needs of millions whose access to energy is limited. Carbon reduction strategies. Climate change is a global problem that requires serious attention and concerted efforts to solve. The Kaya identity, which calculates the carbon intensity of any economy, provides a way to measure an economy's emissions profile. The top 20 greenhouse gas emitting nations, led by the US and China, create about 80% of global emissions. Different economies have varying needs that require different approaches to reduce carbon emissions. Countries with high per capita GDP should focus on creating better energy efficiencies and shifting to lower carbon-emitting sources. France has the smallest ratio of carbon emissions to GDP due to its nuclear energy. Reducing emissions requires decreasing population, lowering per capita GDP, and shifting to alternative energy sources. However, many countries have unrealistic reduction goals and rely on cap and trade programs to reduce carbon emissions, which does not always work. To meet its reduction targets, Australia would have to replace its coal-powered electricity plants with 57 new nuclear plants by 2020 or build 12,665 solar thermal power plants. Similarly, the US proposed a carbon reduction of 17% off of the 2005 rates by 2020, which requires replacing 12.9 quads of coal-sourced energy with carbon-neutral alternatives by 2026. Technological fixes such as carbon capture and storage or chemical air capture offer the promise of reducing carbon emissions. Protecting forests is also a non-technological solution that can absorb atmospheric carbon. All these efforts cost less than doing nothing. Although reducing carbon emissions is a challenging and complex problem, it is essential to take significant steps towards mitigating the impact of climate change. Understanding conflict over climate change. The defining of climate change has sparked debates among experts across various fields, leading to differing opinions on how significant its impact is. While the IPCC defines it as any change, man-made or natural, affecting the climate system, the UN Framework Convention only recognizes human activity as a contributing factor. Regardless of the cause, steps to mitigate its effects must be taken. A no-regrets approach should be adopted in addressing climate change while seeking to reduce ongoing damage. Decoupling carbon policies from other factors can lead to more effective solutions to decarbonizing and defining climate issues. It's necessary to establish adaptation policies now due to increased vulnerability to extreme weather events. The notion that climate change is a significant factor in weather-related disasters is scientifically unfounded. Instead, it's increased development in vulnerable areas that has contributed to the magnitude of such disasters. The idea that climate change can be comprehensively dealt with under a one-size-fits-all policy instrument is unrealistic. Scientific manipulation. The release of private emails from climate scientists revealed attempts to manipulate the peer review process and suppress opposing studies. This led skeptics to oppose action on climate change and illustrated the subversion of scientific truth for political agendas. The selective use of science by advocates on both sides has caused doubt in the public, but unsupportable claims and polarization discourage alternative views and limit policy choices. Decarbonizing energy access. A strategy that offers energy access while addressing climate change will drive down emissions while fueling economic growth. Global demand for energy continues to rise, and to decarbonize the economy, carbon-free energy sources need greater access while leaving remaining fossil fuels untapped. Countries and people without energy face cost barriers, driving technological innovation to achieve accelerated decarbonization. Governments must invest in alternatives and research while fostering competition among institutions and agencies, with a public works model and demonstration projects for promising emissions-reducing technologies. The government can emerge as an early and large customer of such alternatives. Sustainable alternatives to fossil fuels. To limit financial risks, investing in a variety of sustainable alternatives to fossil fuels is essential. A $5 per ton carbon tax in the U.S. would raise approximately $30 billion and generate further billions if implemented globally. The CEO of ExxonMobil supports the proposal. A gradual increase in tax, coupled with a commitment to using the funds exclusively for energy innovation, would make sense. However, the road to decarbonizing the global economy and providing cheap, clean energy to those who lack it requires innovation and collaboration on an unprecedented scale.
Having delved into the wide-ranging perspectives, dilemmas, and options laid forth in The Climate Fix, it becomes clear that addressing climate change requires a multifaceted strategy that moves beyond traditional, polarized debates. Pielke underscores the need for dynamic technological innovations, targeted policy interventions, and unprecedented international collaboration as we chart the course towards sustainable economic development. In addition, he argues that governments must invest in diversified, environmentally sustainable technologies and resist the temptation to fall back on counterproductive approaches. By confronting the complex forces influencing global warming, policymakers can ultimately create an opportunity for engaging and digestible solutions to one of the most pressing challenges of our time.